Chapter 396, A Dream, 2. Any demon folk possessing the needed intelligence to have some level of rational thought must have, at some point, had their suspicions about the Demon King of Destruction. There were so few actual known facts about the Demon King of Destruction that there were even a few conspiracy theories that speculated whether the Demon King of Destruction actually existed. It was during the era of war 300 years ago that the Demon King of Destruction left the strongest impression of his existence on recorded history. Until then, all of the demon kings and demon folk had collectively remained within Helmuth, which gave the country its title as the Devildom. But they didn't all necessarily stay there. This was because there were a few species among the demon folk who had no choice but to remain involved with the humans, such as the night demons and the vampires. In fact, even before the dawn of the war era, it wasn't rare for such demon folk to attack humans. However, it was only 300 years ago that the demon folk truly declared war on the humans and the entire continent. The Demon King of Incarceration ruled the largest territory within Helmuth and therefore usually resided deep within Helmuth. But that Demon King, who had lived a quiet existence until then, suddenly destroyed one of the small countries located near the Devildom within a single night. No one knew why he had done so, and the Demon King of Incarceration hadn't shown any warning signs before taking action. It was just that, within the space of a single night as the sun rose, the world discovered that a country had been destroyed. That was how the war between the Devildom and the continent had started, with a sudden invasion by the Demon King of Incarceration. And as if they had been waiting for this opportunity, the three lower-ranking demon kings immediately mustered their demon armies and invaded the continent. Horrified, the nations of the continent raced to prepare a response. Until that point, the Demon King of Destruction had still kept his silence. No one knew whether this was simply because of his dignity as the highest-ranking Great Demon King or if it was merely indifference. But the Demon King of Destruction didn't bother raising an army of his own. The vassals who served the Demon King of Destruction also remained where they were instead of invading the continent with the other demon folk. The silent Demon King of Destruction only began to move when the entirety of the continent's dragon population flew into the skies above Helmuth. The Demon King of Incarceration was the first to meet those dragons, but shortly afterward, the Demon King of Destruction also appeared. It made you wonder if that thing could truly be a demon king, Norgiabella recalled. Nor had personally witnessed the battlefield where the dragons had died in droves, displaying none of their usual draconic dignity. At that time, Nor had been much weaker than she was now, and she longed for the strength the demon kings had shown. When she had first heard that all of the dragons on the continent had gathered together to come and attack Helmuth, Nor had made her way to the battlefield on the off chance that she might be able to hunt down a few of the dragons and harvest their hearts. Harboring such hopes, she had headed out towards the front lines, but she wasn't even able to get close. The Demon King of Incarceration had already arrived on the front lines of the battlefield, all on his own, and turned all of the other demon folk, who had shown up to the battle while harboring the same greedy hopes as Noir, into bystanders. It could only be described as a massacre, a truly one-sided massacre. Hundreds of dragons launched their breath attacks, chanted draconic incantations, and devastated both the heavens and the earth. But in front of the dark power of the Demon King of Incarceration, all of their desperate resistance still left them as helpless as children trying to stave off an adult. As hundreds and thousands of rays of light flashed within a single instant, dragons fell to the ground in their dozens, spilling their blood everywhere, only to soon be torn to pieces or crushed by the Demon King's chains. When about half of the dragons had been killed, the Demon King of Incarceration suddenly withdrew, because destruction had arrived on the battlefield. Nor couldn't remember all that much of what she had seen back then. Even though the sights and the emotions that she had felt at that moment were so intense it seemed like she would never forget them, she couldn't remember much because she wasn't able to comprehend much of what she had seen. A riot of all sorts of colors, scattering apart before coming back together again, mixing and swirling together, before dividing back up into their separate colors once more. Her entire field of view was swamped by these colors before they receded away like the tide. All that was left was a lingering, disgusting sensation as if her brain itself had been tainted through the medium of her sight. There was also an ominous foreboding that if she were to try and understand what she had just seen, her mind might be eaten away by it until it began to crumble. That was something else, Noir thought with a shudder. Noir had been alive for a very long time. Including the 3 demon kings who were now dead and fully erased from this world. She had met every one of the demon kings whose existence had been recorded in history. But among them, the demon king of destruction was a unique existence. Was that thing really a demon king? If it wasn't a demon king, then just what type of existence was it? Why was something like that being labeled as a demon king? What has prompted you to take action now? Alfiro asked, no longer attempting to hold back Noir. Instead, perhaps out of a desire to follow and monitor her, he was now flying a short distance behind Noir. For the past 300 years, you have never shown any interest in Revesta, Duke Giabella. That's because there wasn't any need for it until now, Noir answered. This was a fairly serious response on her part. While the oath between the Demon King of Incarceration and the continent was intact and in full force, Noir had chosen to take advantage of the peace to cultivate her own strength. During this era of peace, there was no need for her to find out more about this terrifying and ominous Demon King of Destruction. And even during the era of war, the Demon King of Destruction had merely wandered about, seemingly without any direct purpose. During this peaceful era established by the oath made between the Demon King of Incarceration and Vermouth, the Demon King of Destruction had hidden away in Revesta, literally doing nothing at all. However, the end of the oath was approaching quickly. This wasn't simply a guess on Noir's part. After all, hadn't the Demon King of Incarceration himself personally spoken out about the oath coming to an end? The terms of that oath should also have something to do with the Demon King of Destruction, and the end of the oath meant an end to this current peace. Would the Demon King of Destruction remain as silent as he was now once the world underwent such a change? There's no way that would be the case, Noir felt. But to put things in another way, until the oath ended, the Demon King of Destruction wouldn't be making any movements. Even if Noir were to force her way into Revesta and wander around, the Demon King of Destruction shouldn't act to restrict Noir from doing so. In that case, wasn't this the perfect time to seek the answers she hadn't been able to wring out of the Demon King of Incarceration? Noir thought of that ominous Moonlight Sword and of Eugene, who was somehow mixed up with that Moonlight Sword and the Demon King of Destruction. Have you heard about Jagan's death? Noir suddenly inquired. The demon folk of Revesta were highly isolationist. From what Noir had heard, there didn't seem to be a rule that actually prevented them from leaving Revesta. Still, the vast majority of the demon folk here, including Alfiro, who was currently following her, had never left Revesta during these past 300 years. However, even among their number, there were still a few demon folk who had escaped Revesta, and of those there were 1 or 2 who had also made quite a name for themselves. There was Jagan, who had turned his fangs against his own father, Oberon, and formed his own gang of beast folk. Then there was also one Amelia Merwin. Though if you think about it, she's not actually a demon folk, Noir thought with a snort as she turned back to look at Alfiro. She had been hoping to see at least a slight reaction from him, but Alfiro's face showed nothing but calmness. Yes, I have heard about it, Alfiro confirmed. They say that he died while felling the Dragon Demon Castle. Noir nodded. That's right. It's quite an unfortunate death, isn't it? After all, I considered Jagan to be the best among the younger generation of demon folk. That's true, Alfiro agreed. Setting aside his character, Jagan's strength and youthful potential were exceptional. If only he had just been a bit more rational and patient, at least he wouldn't have had to die in that battle at the Dragon Demon Castle. Although his expression was as calm as ever, Alfiro's sympathy felt sincere. But more patient, he says. What could more patience have potentially brought Jagan? Noir thought to herself with a smile as she turned around. Could Alfiro still be waiting for the awakening of his master, who had been silent for the past hundreds of years? Isn't living such a life of seclusion boring, Alfiro? Even now, if it's a demon folk at your level, you're guaranteed to be able to claim a high position within Pandemonium. Or perhaps, how about it? Would you rather come to work in my city? Noir invited him. Are you talking about your new Giabella city? Alfiro asked. Noir laughed triumphantly. Ah, it seems the rumors have even reached Revesta? That's right, I'm talking about my Giabella city. It's actually been a lot more successful than I had expected it would be, and because of that we're short on manpower in many areas. It's not just you, Alfiro. I can accept your whole clan as well. Alfiro shook his head and said, I am thankful for the offer, but I must decline. But why? Noir pouted. As expected, is it because of your loyalty to the Demon King of Destruction? So it's fine. You don't need to worry about that. If the Demon King of Destruction ever calls for you, you'll be permitted to leave my side immediately. Noor wasn't actually so short of manpower that she needed to extend a hand to outsiders. To a certain extent, her question was only meant to probe Alfiro's reaction. Though if Alfiro were willing to accept her offer, Noor felt she could just have him clean the bathrooms in Giabella City. His Highness, the Demon King of Destruction, has no need to rely on me or my clan, Alfiro said, shaking his head in resignation with a wry smile. Regardless of his will or lack thereof, we are committed to serving him here in Revesta. Should she try to use her demon eye of fantasy on him? Noor was tempted to dig deeper into his dreams and consciousness so that she could try to open a hole to peek into Alfiro's heart. But no, there were several risks with taking such a course of action. That ominous and alien dark power of the Demon King of Destruction within Alfiro might just retaliate by causing any intruder's consciousness to collapse. As someone who specialized in invading the minds of others, this made it quite an unpleasant opponent for Noor. So Noor didn't want to take the risk of endangering her own consciousness just to take a look into Alfiro's dreams. Noor noticed something. This isn't just at the level of showing loyalty to his Demon King. It's like he's a fanatic. Until now, Noor had developed quite a nasty hobby of corrupting and destroying the faith of many devout religious figures. When Alfiro spoke of the Demon King of Destruction, in some ways he seemed to resemble those fanatics. Though indeed that thing, it does seem closer to a god than a demon king, Noor admitted to herself. Considering the existence of divine power and miracles, it seemed that gods did exist. But, even after having lived for so long, Noor had never once seen a god in person. So, in the same sense of being in existence beyond any mortal comprehension, there didn't seem to be much of a difference between the Demon King of Destruction and a god. If that was the case, didn't it only make sense that others would worship and devote themselves to it? Noor herself wasn't unfamiliar with being worshipped and treated as an object of faith by the unwashed masses. Right at this moment, Giabella City and Dreamia were full of naked monkeys who worshipped Noor like a god. It seems that there really is nothing here? Noor muttered doubtfully while looking around at an empty beach and the scenery that lay beyond it. Upon arriving at Revesta, she discovered that there truly was nothing to see here. It was a barren wilderness without even a single blade of grass, let alone any trees. Even on the beach there didn't seem to be any waves. The only things wandering around on this desolate land were gray clouds of dust that looked like the ashes left after something had been burned. Should I just head in on my own? Or else, would you like to open it up for me? Noor asked with a snort as she pointed a finger at the seemingly empty wilderness. At this rude demand, Alfiro stepped forward with a wry smile. Whoosh! The dust-filled wilderness split open as a black hole appeared in the ground. It's like you're all a bunch of moles, Noor said with a giggle as she folded her wings. Then, without waiting for Alfiro's response, she jumped into the hole. Or would it be better to call them fundamentalists? Noor considered idly. This reminded her of a very long time ago, a time when humans couldn't even distinguish the difference between monsters and demonic beasts. An era when demonic beasts didn't possess any sapience or sentience and couldn't be reborn as demon folk. In that era, light couldn't be found anywhere in the world. Fire might have been warming, but it couldn't light up the darkness. The only source of light was the sun that rose in the morning and set in the evening. Even the lightning that split apart the night sky could only draw lines of light. It couldn't illuminate the ever-present darkness. In that era, when the day and the night were perfectly divided into light and dark, the humans were only active during the day while the demonic beasts were only active at night. Without a single speck of light, the night hours belonged to the demonic beasts, and the humans had to struggle to avoid being hunted down as prey. According to theology, the God of Light descended upon this world and gave humans light. From the moment that the God of Light descended, flames became able to illuminate the darkness. Even the lightning, which was only capable of creating noise, was now able to brighten up the world with its flash. From then onwards, the balance of power between humans and demonic beasts had reversed. Humans already possessed the advantage of intelligence, and now they were even able to transform the night into day. Things such as egos didn't originally exist among the demonic beasts who were born out of the demonic darkness. However, at some point the demonic beasts began to develop egos. As they slowly began to define their own existence as being something more than mere monsters, the demonic beasts transformed into the demon folk. That was how the species known as the demon folk appeared in this world. Just like how the origin of all spirits lay in the primal spirits, the source of all demon folk lay within those demonic beasts that once wandered the eternal darkness. So from that perspective, this underground city of Ravesta seemed to be paying lip service to the demonic darkness that once served as the origin of the demon folk race. So that's why humans can't survive here, Noir realized upon arrival at their destination. They had passed through a strangely distorted space. Although the hole she had jumped into appeared to be leading somewhere beneath the desolate island, the location they had arrived at wasn't someplace underground. This space, no, should she call it by what it was, a dimensional rift? Noir giggled as she turned and looked out into the endless void of darkness. If it's a human, their eyes would never be able to get used to the darkness in here. And if they ever could see anything even just a little, it would drive them crazy, Noir remarked as she idly wetted her lower lip with her tongue. She had spotted the demonic beasts who were sleeping within the pitch-black darkness. So these were the demonic beasts used during the war. No, there were more than that. It seemed that all of the demonic beasts that had ever been born, lived, and survived throughout Helmuth's long history had been tucked away here within the darkness of this city. The sight of all these countless monsters floating in the void looked like a star-filled sky drawn in shadows or a dark reflection of an aurora. Noir gasped, whoa. Those are the Centipede Mountains, aren't they? I always wondered where they went after the war. So they were here? The Demon King of Incarceration is quite cruel. Even though they faithfully served as the gatekeepers for his territory during the war. The Centipede Mountains were giant demonic beasts that had once encircled the Demon King of Incarceration's castle. Pointing towards the Centipede Mountains, which were floating in the darkness like a nebula in the night sky, Noir laughed and said, though indeed, since the war is over and there is nowhere to put them to use, why not just stuff them away here? I'm asking this just in case, but they won't suddenly come to their senses and attack us, right? Noir turned to look back as she said this. However, Alfiro's figure was nowhere to be seen. Instead, she felt several gazes staring at her from the darkness. After having brought me here so far, are you now telling me to go wherever I please? Noir said with a giggle as her eyes lit up. The demon eye of fantasy flashed. Initially, the demon eye was only capable of simple uses of hypnosis and hallucinations. So, compared to other demonies, it wasn't a very high-level ability. However, when Noir Giabella used the demon eye of fantasy, she was capable of truly transforming reality into fantasy. Without needing to dive into their dreams, she could neutralize all of the gazes staring at her by simply showing them an illusion. It was a blatant display of her power and also a threat. The demon folk who had been watching Noir from the darkness immediately withdrew their gazes. No matter how they tried to hide themselves, Noir had shown that they couldn't escape her sight, which meant that they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand on Noir if they kept trying to play hide and seek with her. There's no need to be too wary. Just think of it as a simple tourist dropping by. Noir waved them off with a snort as she deactivated the demon eye of fantasy. Then she spun around and began walking forward. It seems like requesting an audience won't be possible. Isn't there any other method to approach him? Noir considered the question. This cavern was full of an ominous dark power. Any ordinary demon folk would go crazy before too long upon entering this place. However, Noir was only left with a slightly sour taste in her mouth. Her consciousness wasn't polluted or otherwise harmed. I was hoping that there would at least be a Demon King's castle to head to, Noir thought as she looked around. Even though this was the city where all of the vassals of the Demon King of Destruction lived, there wasn't any form of lighting. Although it could still somewhat be considered a city, none of the infrastructure that Helmuth required of a city existed here. It seems that all of their nourishment needs are taken care of by his dark power, Noir surmised. But how could they bear to be stuck in this place for the past 300 years? Could it be that the dark power of destruction had brainwashing properties? As she looked around at this extremely dull city, Noir couldn't help but think that Jagan and Amelia, who had left Ravesta a long time ago, were the normal ones for leaving this place. Noir encouraged herself. But the presence of his dark power also means that the Demon King of Destruction must be here somewhere. She had no intention of getting too close to the Demon King. However, she wanted to get a deeper feeling for the Demon King's presence than what the dark power currently floating around her was providing. And should it be possible, if the Demon King of Destruction was in existence capable of having a conversation, then she was also eager to talk to him. There was a possibility that something might go wrong and he would try to devour her. But it wasn't like she had just ventured in here blindly without even having a plan to deal with such an eventuality. For now, let's just explore, Noir decided. Thin thread-like strands of her dark power began to spread across the stifling curtain of dark power draped over the land. Noir mustered up her focus as she continued her search. Soon Noir's lips parted in a gasp. Oh my! She had found something. Unable to ignore her own curiosity, Noir moved towards it. Hey! Eugene suddenly spoke up from beside her. Noir, who had been flying through the dark void, ground to a halt as she turned to look at Eugene. Although he looked like a washed-out phantom of himself, Eugene was definitely standing at her side, staring at Noir with a surly expression. Noir stuttered, how did you do that? Eugene frowned. Do what? I'm talking about what you're doing right now, Noir clarified. How have you appeared within this dream? All of this was a part of Noir's memory. Noir had been showing Eugene the events she had experienced when she had gone to Revesta just a few days ago by turning her memories of that day into a dream. This meant that Eugene wasn't a subject of this dream, so in this dream, Eugene shouldn't exist. But Eugene had still suddenly appeared out of thin air. Noir, who had been busy replaying her memories as a dream, couldn't help but be genuinely flustered by this fact. Even though it was true that she had created this dream without any intent to endanger Eugene, to think that he would still be able to manifest at will and interfere in this dream. His mental strength must be beyond any human's, Noir observed. Of course, it was only natural that Eugene's mental strength was stronger than any ordinary human. Eugene turned his gaze away from Noir's flustered expression and pointed towards the demonic beasts floating within this dark space. Those things, are they real? Eugene demanded. Noir was snapped out of her daze. Huh? I'm asking if they're real, Eugene repeated impatiently. Noir hesitated. If you want to know whether they're fake or not, then for now, I'll have to say that it's fake. Because, Hamel, everything you're currently looking at is an illusion I have created. Eugene shook his head. No, I'm asking if what you saw there was real? Of course it was, Noir nodded. Hamel, what benefit could I obtain from showing you such a lie? If your personality was even a little bit more docile, then I believe that I might have liked to show you something scary on purpose to see your frightened expression, but you're not that type of person now, are you? So you're saying that those things are real? Eugene let out a sigh as he looked at all of the demonic beasts. Not only were there far too many of them, but each of the demonic beasts was also gigantic in their own right. Just imagining all of them pouring out of here was enough for Eugene to already feel pissed off with having to deal with them. That's... Noir fidgeted. Hamel, just how have you done this? Done what? Eugene asked absent-mindedly. I'm talking about you appearing in this dream. It's true that I wasn't all that careful about putting up a barrier, but that still shouldn't have allowed you to break into the dream solely by using your mental power, Noir said doubtfully. I just tried it and it worked, Eugene said with a sullen expression as he began trying to move his body around. However, it seemed that his body hadn't been recreated all that accurately, so he wasn't capable of moving off on his own. Putting up with his current phantom-like existence for now, Eugene glanced at Noir and asked, So, where are you going now? Are you heading off to see the Demon King of Destruction? There's someone else I have to meet before that, Noir informed him. Who? Eugene asked curiously. Amelia Merwin and her merry companions, Noir slyly revealed. At these words, Eugene's face twisted in a scowl. I'm not interested in that fucking bitch or that son of a bitch beside her, Eugene cursed. Can't we just skip them and go see the Demon King of Destruction directly? Noir shook her head. To that, I would have to completely rewrite this dream, and in the process a few fictions might slip in. This surprise had actually worked out for the best. Noir quickly leaned over towards Eugene and wrapped her arms around Eugene's flickering form. Eugene's eyes widened as he tried to get away from Noir, but Noir refused to let go of Eugene. There's no need to be so disgusted, Hamel. Don't you think that it would be helpful for you to get a look at their current plans? Noir tempted Eugene. To think she would get a chance to go on a date within her dream. With a bright smile, Noir resumed replaying the memory. Chapter 397, A Dream 3. Up until now there had only been a single Noir Giabella within this dream, but from now on there would be two. Noir separated a clone of herself who would continue to act as the narrator, playing out her memory, while she herself would now be acting as a spectator. The reason for this was simply so that she could link her arms together with Eugene. As she watched her dream self follow the same movements she had made in her own memory, Noor whispered to Eugene, who was struggling beside her, "Though it's a bit weird for me to say this myself, but Hamel, don't you think that I look just perfect?" Noor almost sounded like she was bragging. "Let go," Eugene demanded. "There's no point in talking about the obvious details like my face or body. All of my external features are, of course, flawless. By the way, Hamel, do you know I can cater to and accommodate every and all tastes? If you prefer smaller breasts over larger breasts, then I can just transform myself up to a certain extent," Noor offered. "I said let go of me," Eugene insisted. "And I do mean what I say. I really can cater to whatever sort of tastes that you might have," Noor said seductively. "Even if it's something that you would never talk about to anyone else. Even if it's the most shameful and twisted of fetishes. Also, I'm really only saying this just in case, but Hamel, if it so happens that you're gay instead of straight, I can—" "Let go, you crazy bitch," Eugene roared as he frantically tried to twist his body free. Only then did Noor let go of his arm with a slight smile on her face. "It's just a joke, Hamel. Please don't be too angry with me," Noor pleaded, only to smirk soon after. "Or was it really a joke? I started out trying to be serious, but my tongue seems to have gotten away from me at some point. The fact is that I do look perfect. There's no room for argument in that. Not just in terms of outer beauty but also in terms of personality and background. Don't you feel ashamed or embarrassed to say such things yourself?" Eugene accused. If Mare had heard these words, she would have snorted while pointing out the shamefulness of Eugene's own usual behavior. However, as Mare wasn't present right now, Eugene was able to accuse Noir without feeling any such compunctions. Noir raised an eyebrow. "What's so shameful and embarrassing about saying something like that when I've only come to such an evaluation after giving it serious consideration?" To some extent, Noir's response managed to resonate with Eugene's heart and sway him to agree with her, but the murderous intent and annoyance that Noir sparked within him were far stronger than such enticements. Eugene just silently glared at her without making any sort of response. Noir's shoulders shook tearfully as she whispered to herself, "However, even someone as perfect as I have become a fool in the face of love." A foul curse crawled up Eugene's throat, but instead of letting it burst out, Eugene clamped his lips shut. This was because he felt it would be impossible to even try and have a sensible conversation with such an idiot. While all this was happening, the Noir within the dream had arrived somewhere significant. This mansion, like all other buildings within the city of Revesta, had no light source, and the walls were an even darker shade of black. As Noir descended onto a garden that didn't have even a single blade of grass growing within it, she unconsciously burst into laughter. Woof woof. This barking noise was actually made by Noir. Himoria was leaning with her back against a dog house designed to look like a barn. She had a large dog collar around her neck and a thick chain connecting the collar to a stake in the ground. She glared at Noir, refusing to make a similar barking noise back at Noir. "That costume really suits you, no?" Noir complimented as she smirked at Himoria. This was the Inquisitor who had once been called the Guillotine by the Holy Empire's Bureau of Inquisition, the Malficarum. However, after being excommunicated from the Holy Empire, she had now become someone who didn't officially exist and had been turned into Amelia Merwin's pet. In the past, Himoria had always worn a metal mask that already covered her entire mouth, but her current mask now also had a protruding snout resembling that of a dog. Geh. The sound of grinding teeth could be heard coming from inside Himoria's protruding mask. Laughing at Himoria, Noir approached the door to the mansion. "I see that she's still grinding her teeth," Eugene commented as he glanced at Himoria with a click of his tongue. Seeing as how her hair was a wild mess, and her eyes were full of venomous resentment, it seemed like Himoria had been through a lot of hardships since he last saw her. If she had just gone and died back then, she wouldn't have had to suffer like this, Eugene thought to himself as he turned to look ahead. The Noir in the dream opened the door without waiting for permission and headed on in. "You've got quite the kind personality," Eugene said sarcastically. Noir accepted the compliment calmly. "My demeanor has always been this excellent, but what prompts you to bring up such a thing so suddenly?" "You left that shitty bitch alone even after she glared at you," Eugene pointed out. "Ah, I was wondering what you were trying to say. Hamel, if an ant crawling on the ground were to glare up at you, would you really feel the need to stomp it to death because of that?" Also, instead of ending her miserable life by grinding her beneath my heel, it would be a much more painful fate for her to continue to live while crawling on the ground, Noor explained with a giggle as she followed her dream self forward. Eugene changed the subject. Amelia Merwin. What is that rotten bitch doing here and not in her desert? Alfiro claimed that there aren't any humans living in Revesta, but she is a human, isn't she? Amelia Merwin isn't actually a human, Noor corrected. Eugene was taken aback. What? Although her human characteristics are prominent, she's actually half human, half demon folk, Noor explained. Eugene's eyes widened at these words. Although mixed races born between different species were already rare enough, the rarest of all such pairings were those born between humans and demon folks. Eugene was reminded of Eileen Plott, the half-vampire bishop of Al-Karti. Noor continued to speak. Amelia's mother was a demon folk from Revesta who was impregnated by a human while she was out in the world. She later returned to Revesta to give birth to her child, and voila, that's how Amelia Merwin was born. Eugene huffed as he processed this revelation. That's why Amelia is a special case. She's a mixed race born between a human and a demon folk. Even though those born from such a mix usually aren't able to awaken their dark power like ordinary demon folk, Amelia was able to awaken her dark power all on her own and became a black wizard. That means she didn't see the need to follow her mother's example to make a contract with the demon king of destruction. Noor turned to Eugene with a smile and said, also, Amelia is currently here in Revesta, because she's afraid. Afraid? Eugene repeated, his brows furrowing as he felt confused by what Noor was saying. As they walked down a dark hallway, Noor whispered to Eugene, just think about it, Hamel. Until the night march a few months ago, Amelia Merwin didn't even consider you to be a threat. She doesn't know that you're actually Hamel, and she usually keeps that Death Knight that thinks of itself as this stupid Hamel by her side to act as her guard. Even though that bastard is so fucking weak, Eugene grumbled, still maintaining a furrowed brow. Though in fact such a rude assessment was practically spitting into his own face. This was because, after excluding the fact that its memories had been altered if you only looked at its combat ability, there was no doubt that the Death Knight was at the same level that Hamel had been when he was still alive. Noor nodded. That's right, for you who has surpassed the level you had in your previous life, I'm sure he's no longer your opponent. Amelia Merwin has also realized the truth of that. After all, Hamel, you did defeat the Death Knight when you killed Edmund in the Samar rainforest. So what do you think Amelia Merwin's first thoughts were when she discovered such a fact? Instead of replying, Eugene's lips twitched in a smirk. Glancing over at the sarcastic smile on Eugene's face, Noor chuckled and continued speaking. On top of that, you even managed to resurrect the wise Sienna, now haven't you? Now that you've done all that, even Amelia, who used to be so fearless, couldn't help but start to feel afraid. After all, she does have plenty of reasons to feel guilty. It was just as Noor had said. Sienna harbored an enormous grudge towards Amelia for her desecration of Hamel's tomb and especially his corpse. So because of that, she abandoned her dungeon in the desert and ended up here? Eugene asked. That's right, Noor confirmed. After all, even you would find it difficult to force your way in if it's here. And Hamel, you don't plan to provoke the Demon King of Destruction so quickly, now do you? It would be insane to even think of heading toward the Demon King of Destruction before he had even managed to defeat the Demon King of Incarceration. No matter how much he wanted to get rid of Amelia, Eugene at least had enough self-control to keep himself from doing that. However, he couldn't help but feel a surge of annoyance rising within him because of this. Bender. As Eugene's face crumpled into a scowl, Noir, who was still glancing towards him, whispered with a smile, if you want to kill Amelia, there's no need for you to come all the way here. What are you trying to say? Eugene asked suspiciously. Noir waved off his question. Well, you'll understand once you've watched a bit further. Noir's dream self suddenly halted her steps. With a silent laugh, she spun to the side and reached out her hand. At this gesture, the darkness in the hallway parted, and a door opened in front of her. Even from within the dream, Eugene was able to sense how heavy and violent the dark power spilling out of that room was. Standing behind Noir, Eugene looked over her shoulder and into the room. He saw something wriggling on the ground, wrapped in rolls of paper talismans like they were being used as bandages. The shape of the squirming figure wasn't quite clear. It looked a bit like a jiggling slime and also a bit like a shadow that was sent writhing across a wall when a light illuminating a dark room flickered. The thing made some kind of muffled noise. Although Eugene couldn't hear it clearly, it sounded like it was trying to speak in a hoarse man's voice. But that short burst of sound was enough for Eugene to feel an intense murderous desire and hatred rising within him, allowing him to quickly realize what this figure was. "It seems you're tied up in something," the dream Noir whispered. Nodding her head in greeting towards the spirit wriggling within the darkness, Noir called out, "Hello, Hamel." Though her dream self had called it Hamel, Noir knew perfectly well that this thing wasn't actually Hamel. However, she thought it was funny and amusing to watch this thing continue to believe it was actually Hamel and try to act like he would. But if this thing were to complete its transformation by struggling forward with such misconceptions, if this imitation were to somehow manage to become almost identical to the real thing, Noir had her hopes that it might become quite the interesting specimen. "Ella," the thing groaned. "That's right, it's me, Hamel Noir Giabella," Noir said softly. "Your appearance seems quite different from when I last saw you in Babel, no?" The figure remained silent. Noir sighed. "As a death knight who has lost his body, all that remains of you is your soul. To think that that woman, Amelia, would be so cruel. She doesn't even allow the dead to have their proper rest. And she keeps on placing such burdens on you. Don't you think so too, Hamel?" The Death Knight continued to hold its tongue. "The body that proved who you really were has now disappeared. And it's all because of Vermouth's descendant, Eugene Lionheart. Now that you've turned out like this, the only thing that proves you are Hamel is..." Noir's voice trailed off as she stooped down and extended a finger towards the darkness. Skillfully pretending sympathy, Noir continued, "The only thing left is the poor soul squirming in front of me right now. However, Hamel, you should know this as well, right? That no one in the world would think of Hamel Dinas if they could see you right now. The world still remembers you as this stupid Hamel, who died 300 years ago. Who on earth could have imagined that such a hero would be corrupted and become a death knight?" There was only silence at Noir's provocative words. "Of course you must feel aggrieved by that. You definitely still do exist and you remain aware of your own true identity, but what can you do? After all, even I have to wonder, are you really the Hamel I once knew? On top of that, in your current state you can't really be described as just you, can you? It seems that far too many things have been mixed in with you," Noir sighed regretfully. Eugene stared at the twisted spirit with a complex emotion in his eyes. It was a fate created by basing its personality on the memories lingering within Hamel's corpse. Or at least that was what it had been when they had met in the rainforest. But currently that thing couldn't even rightly be called a death knight any longer, as like Noir had said, many other things seemed to have been mixed into it until the thing's very soul had become polluted. However, there was something that Eugene could be sure of. Even though its body had disappeared and too many things had been infused into it, this spirit would adamantly refuse to despair or be discouraged by its situation. As long as that thing continued to hold on to Hamel's memories and thought of itself as Hamel, that is. Especially since it sincerely believed the story that its false memories had told it that Hamel was betrayed by his comrades after ascending to the Demon King of Incarceration's castle. In Eugene's opinion, when placed in such a situation, Hamel would never despair, no matter how poor the current conditions were. As long as he had a goal to pursue, Hamel would always survive somehow, even if that goal was to reunite with his former comrades and seek revenge. Or perhaps it might just want to ask them why they did it, Eugene silently sighed. Or rather, that was definitely what it wanted to do. The Hamel in Eugene's memories was definitely someone with that personality. After having been in a situation where he felt that he didn't have much time left and still insisted on climbing up towards the Demon King of Incarceration's castle, if such a person were to actually believe that he had died, not from an ugly self-inflicted death, but from a betrayal by his comrades, then, as someone who had already gone through the despair of that realization and clawed his way up through such a hell, Eugene believed that there was no way that he would give up when in such a situation. The soul kept refusing to say anything in response. Noir shrugged at the spirit's refusal to show any reaction and turned to look behind her. "Now, how did you end up like that?" Noir asked. Standing behind her was Amelia Merwin. From what Eugene could see, Amelia currently looked ridiculous. Just like the spirit lying on the floor, Amelia's whole body was wrapped up in paper talismans like a mummy's bandages. Taking a closer look at her face, which had the fewest bandages on it, Eugene saw that the surface of her skin seemed to be cracked as if it might break apart at any moment. "What are you doing here?" Amelia demanded in a raspy voice. The cracks didn't just spread across her skin. They even reached into her eyes, so when Amelia's brow furrowed in a frown, her eyes physically cracked apart. Noir sniffed, "It's my freedom to go wherever I please. Don't you agree? This is Revesta. This isn't a territory that the likes of you are permitted to enter," Amelia insisted. "Ahem, it doesn't seem like such a forbidden zone to me, though. The only one who can ban me from entering this fief is the Demon King of Destruction himself, but I haven't heard any reprimands from him," Noir said with a giggle as she walked over to Amelia. "Or perhaps has the Demon King of Destruction said anything to you? Has he told you that he is displeased with me?" Amelia was unable to answer her questions. "Aha," Noir suddenly said as she nodded her head. "Now I understand why you look like that. It's already been several decades since you first left this place, but this is the first time you've returned here since you signed a contract with the Demon King of Incarceration, isn't it?" Instead of replying, Amelia bit down on her lip. "Moreover, since you've now become the staff of incarceration, you should have received even more of the Demon King of Incarceration's dark power." Noir burst into laughter. "Ah, does it feel like your very existence is being rejected by the land itself? If you were also a deceased spirit without a physical body of your own, you might have been able to blend the two powers together, but since you're not dead yet, the powers aren't able to get along within your flesh, causing your whole body to crumble into pieces. Have you come here just to mock me?" Amelia scowled. "No way. Do I really look like I have enough time to do something like that? I've come here for a much different reason," Noir said with a smile. Even as she continued to smile brightly, Noir pinched her nose as if smelling something nasty. "However, after seeing you like this, I couldn't help but mock you," Noir admitted. "So much so that even I am troubled by how the urge to mock you has gotten the better of me despite my best intentions otherwise. After all, the hometown you decided to return to out of fear doesn't seem willing to protect you. So, Amelia Merwin, how does it feel to be dying?" Amelia bit harder on her lip. "Poor Amelia Merwin," Noir sighed. "No wonder you smell like a rotting corpse. It's funny how the smell of those rotten bodies that you so love to play with and embrace is now emanating from your own body." Mutual repulsion. This was a concept that even Eugene found easy to understand. Noir Giabella had never made a contract with the Demon King of Incarceration, so her dark power belonged solely to herself. On the other hand, Amelia had made a contract with the Demon King of Incarceration, which meant she was drawing on his dark power. That was why she was now receiving backlash from staying within Revesta. So what she said earlier was true. There's no need for me to come all the way here just to kill Amelia Merwin, Eugene realized. Since Amelia can't last much longer within Revesta in any case. As for that deceased soul, no, that spirit had never actually died in the first place. That artificial soul and the things that had been mixed into it were now blending together along with the ambient dark power. However, Amelia wasn't able to reconcile with the ambient dark power like the spirit could, so all she could do was forcefully endure the pain. So unless Amelia truly wanted to die, she would eventually have no choice but to leave Revesta. "If you've finished mocking me, then please leave," Amelia requested curtly after a pause. "When it comes to mocking you, I have enough material to last several more days. However, I do agree to stop here, Amelia Merwin. Although I don't like you, that doesn't mean I hate you," Noir said as she walked over to Amelia. "I'm asking this just in case, but do you know where the palace of the Demon King of Destruction is located?" "No, I don't," Amelia quickly denied. "Really?" Noir asked doubtfully. Amelia scoffed. "Even if I did know where it was, I have no intention of telling you. In the first place, what are you even?" Noir interrupted her. "The truth is, I didn't actually come here looking for directions." Her amusement-laden voice had Amelia furrowing her brow in concern. "The reason I came here is just that I was curious about how you and Hamel were doing. That's all there was to it," Noir claimed as she slowly raised her hands. Amelia, who was carefully watching Noir, soon realized something was wrong, and her face twisted into a panicked expression. "Hold on, Giabi." Boom. Noir slammed both of her raised arms down. At this gesture, the space around them shook violently and the mansion began to collapse. Boom. Noir swung her arms once more. The immense amounts of dark power wielded by Noir managed to shatter space itself. "Stop!" Amelia screamed. The various spells that she had embedded into the mansion were being shattered by Noir's rampage, and the backlash of their shattering caused Amelia to spew out a dark mouthful of blood. Ahaha. Noir laughed crazily as she continued to strike out with her dark power, one blow after another. Burn. The demon folk who had been standing guard outside of the mansion started to rush towards the noise. Among their number was Alfiro, who had escorted Noir on the way here. His expression showed that he never could have imagined that Noir would do something this barbaric and violent here, in the center of Revesta. The same was also true of Eugene. Eugene's jaw dropped open as he turned to look at the real Noir. Noir, observing the dream alongside Eugene, was staring at her own self within the dream, her eyes downcast in dismay at the sight of this behavior. If I knew that I was going to show this scene to you, I would have acted a bit more elegantly, Noir sighed regretfully. Just what the hell are you thinking? Eugene inquired. You can tell just by looking, Hamel. I'm knocking on the wall, Noir explained. The wall. Eugene repeated curiously. That's right, Noir said with a grin as she pointed downwards. The Demon King of Destruction is hiding down there. Though by that, I don't mean he's actually further underground. Instead, he's residing within a separate space somewhere beyond this dimension. So, I'm just attempting to get through to that dimension by breaking down the wall in between. Though I'm making that attempt here of all places, just because Amelia Merwin kept telling me to leave. With a look of disbelief, Eugene turned back to look at Amelia. Amelia, who had been caught up in Noir's rampage and forced to vomit blood, was now unable to even keep standing and had fallen onto the ground. In this situation, Noir finally managed to break through the wall. Duke Giabella. Alfiro cried out as he rushed towards Noir. However, Alfiro suddenly fell to the ground, frozen in the act of running. Alfiro wasn't the only one. The dozens of demon folk rushing forward alongside him also collapsed onto the ground, unable to approach Noir. This was hypnotism, an ability that all high-ranking night demons were able to use, and it could force any opponent in their field of vision to fall asleep. Noir's hypnotism could make even high-ranking demon folk fall asleep in a single moment. On top of that, she would send them into a layered dream within a dream. This special technique could trap her opponents, allowing them to wander through multiple layers of dreams without invading too deeply into their consciousnesses. After subduing all the demon folk just like that, Noir headed on down with a giggle, crossing over to the other side of the broken wall. She descended into the source of the dark power that had already engulfed the entirety of Revesta. Ah! Noir moaned in satisfaction as an enticing chill ran up her spine. This was the first time that Noir had had to protect herself in a very long time. Within the eerie confines of this space, even Noir Giabella, the queen of the night demons, felt threatened. She continued to descend while protecting herself with her dark power. Is the Demon King of Destruction down there? Eugene asked suddenly. Noir shrugged. Probably. Probably. Eugene repeated, his brow furrowing in a frown as he glared below. As the darkness rushed past them, he saw something huge waiting below. It looked like a temple. Find the original at poreed.com. Well, you'll find out if you just keep watching, Noir assured him. The descending Noir finally arrived at the entrance to the temple. Instead of entering the temple right away, she raised her head to look up at the sky. No one had followed her in past the wall she had broken, but they should all be able to wake up from her dreams within a short time. Other demon folk who may still be waiting outside the mansion might also come in after her. Since she had already done more than enough to cause him offense by acting so aggressively, Noir didn't intend to go any further than this. Please excuse me, Noir said politely. This temple had to be the palace of the Demon King of Destruction. Even though it was Noir, she had no intention of causing a scene while within the Demon King's palace. With a low bow of greeting, Noir walked into the temple. The temple was completely empty. She couldn't even see anything like the Demon King's throne. Naturally, that also meant the Demon King was nowhere to be seen. However, Noir wasn't flustered by this fact and kept heading deeper into the temple. There's a barrier here, Noir said with a grin as she rubbed a hand over her eyes. Breaking the barrier erected here seemed a bit too dangerous even for her. However, the fact that there was a barrier here led Noir to make all sorts of guesses. Ring. Noir's eyes shone with light. Packed to the brim with dark power, her eyes focused as they stared into the barrier. As her eyes looked past the barrier, spying on the other side, Noir saw a chair wrapped in chains. Chapter 398, A Dream 4. Eugene inhaled sharply. A chair wrapped in chains. The moment he saw this, the very first thought that came to Eugenie's mind was the Demon King of Incarceration. Whenever that Demon King appeared, he was always accompanied by the sound of chains, and he also had countless chains trailing behind him like a cloak. Not only that, the Demon King of Incarceration also held an inseparable relationship with the Demon King of Destruction. This was because although they weren't sure what the actual truth was in Eugenie's and a few others' opinions, the Demon King of Incarceration seemed to be the only one who could control the Demon King of Destruction. At the very least, during the few times in the past when Eugenie had managed to get close to the Demon King of Destruction, his attempts to find out more had always been interfered with by the Demon King of Incarceration. This was Revesta, the territory of destruction. And this temple found in the depths of Revesta might just be the Demon King of Destruction's palace. Could it be that the Demon King of Incarceration had appeared here to ward off any intruders who approached without permission? No, it wasn't him. The blurry scene on the other side of the barrier gradually became clearer. Upon seeing what lay beyond, Eugenie unconsciously tried to move forward. However, he wasn't able to do what he wanted. This was because Noir, the one who had been watching the memory play out alongside him, grabbed Eugenie's arm. "You can't get any closer," Noir whispered. "Even though this is a dream, it's still all based on what I personally experienced. And I didn't get to see anything past this point. So even if you get closer, Hamel, you won't be able to see or sense anything more than this." As if to prove these words, the dream shook. The shaking was because Noir's consciousness had been damaged by what she had just witnessed in the dream. The Noir in the dream, who had been standing there in a daze, was suddenly thrown backward, blood pouring from her eyes, nose and mouth. "For Vermouth?" Noir gasped out in a confused tone as she kept coughing up blood. The figure sitting in the chair, wrapped in chains, was Vermouth Lionheart. Eugenie gritted his teeth at this sight. Vermouth looked incomparably more exhausted and haggard than when Eugenie had seen him in the darkroom's vision. His long gray hair, which had resembled a lion's mane, now looked as if it hadn't been combed in a very long time and had transformed into a matted bird's nest. His head was bowed so low that it was hard to see his face, but from the way that his shoulders slumped, his arms draped limply over the armrests, and his legs stretched out weakly in front of him, it was possible to confirm what a poor condition Vermouth was in. There weren't even any signs of breathing. Vermouth just sat there in complete stillness as if he had been taxidermied. Eugenie's body trembled with agitation as he tried to go to Vermouth once more. However, Noir strengthened her hold on Eugenie and refused to let him go. Noir reminded him, "I told you already, it's useless." "Let go," Eugenie grunted. "Really, even though I'm saying this for your sake." Noir let out a sigh as she let go of Eugenie's arm. Only then was Eugenie able to stagger over towards Vermouth. However, the distance between him and Vermouth didn't shorten no matter how much he wanted it to. Eugenie's steps reached an unseen line, with their farthest point set at where the Dream Noir was currently standing, and they refused to go any further. "I told you so," Noir huffed. "Like I said, that is as far as I got when trying to see what was on the other side of the barrier. Something blocked my mental probe when I focused on trying to cross that line." Although Eugenie kept trying to walk forward, he was just left repeatedly stumbling in the exact same spot. Eugenie snorted in anger and clenched his fists. "You're Vermouth Lionheart, right? What are you doing in there?" the Dream Noir asked in an urgent voice. Dark blood continued to pour from her eyes, nose and mouth. The sinister dark power within the barrier had even managed to overwhelm the defenses of a demon folk at Noir's level and had caused her harm. Although she had been able to endure the assault of the dark power without allowing it to contaminate her, she couldn't even imagine trying to resist or fight back against it. This was the Great Vermouth. The Vermouth of despair. For the past 300 years, Noir had harbored a fear of this beautiful yet eerie man. During the era of war, Noir had delved into the dreams of all this man's companions, including her dear Hamel. She had trespassed into Hamel, Molin, Sienna, and Anissa's dreams. She had also attempted to invade Vermouth's dreams. However, she hadn't found any dreams waiting for her at the bottom of Vermouth's heart. No, for the man known as Vermouth, things such as dreams simply didn't seem to exist. All of his comrades had had some kind of dream lying deep within their hearts, and she could always find within them lingering emotions related to their dreams or what was happening in reality, but strangely, no such thing seemed to exist within the man known as Vermouth. But perhaps it might just be because Vermouth had managed to learn some exotic spell of protection. Just like how people with particularly strong mental strength were able to protect their minds through sheer willpower, Vermouth may have also used some kind of spell to protect his mind from invasion. In fact, Noor had only managed to trespass on Hamel and the other party members' dreams the first few times she had tried, as from some point onwards, Noor had no longer been able to break through Sienna and Anissa's barriers. As Vermouth was a special case even among their ranks, it was possible that he may have been able to perfectly protect his mind from the very beginning. But was that really the case? Even now, after 300 years had passed, Noor didn't have any confidence in making any assumptions about Vermouth, even as he was back then. Had she really failed to spy on his dreams? Or perhaps she truly had seen what lay at the heart of Vermouth. So if what she saw was real, then that meant. Noor tried to call out Vermouth's name once more, Vermouth Liony. But at that very moment, Vermouth, who looked to have been frozen in position, suddenly moved. It was only a tiny movement, but the sound that it caused was much larger than what might have been expected at first sight. The chains connected to the chair all simultaneously raised their ends. They then moved to wrap around both the chair and Vermouth, binding him from head to toe. Then, as if that wasn't enough, they even twisted through the air a few more times, creating a tight knot. Noor was startled by this sudden commotion and took a step backward. Creak creak. The entangled mass of chains collectively made a noise as Vermouth raised his head from within their tight confines. Beneath the messy and disheveled hair, his eyes slowly opened. At this moment, Eugene recalled his battle against the Demon King of Fury. Specifically when the Moonlight Sword had run out of control, and Eugene was dragged into an unknown void. At that time, Eugene had seen Vermouth in the middle of that void. Though while it was true that Eugene had seen him there, he hadn't been able to see Vermouth's face directly. However, Eugene was still sure that the wavering figure he had seen there was Vermouth. And in fact, it had definitely been Vermouth. But the figure that was currently reflected within Eugenie's eyes didn't feel at all like Vermouth. Given the current circumstances, there couldn't have been a significant gap of time between the Vermouth that he had spoken to during the Moonlight Sword's rampage and the Vermouth that was currently being bound in that chair with those chains. However, the Vermouth that Eugene was presently looking at directly felt more like a stranger than when Vermouth had only been visible as a faint figure within the void. Vermouth raised his head and opened his eyes, but he didn't say anything. However, Eugene was able to sense several things from that silence. Like how worn out Vermouth was and how clouded his eyes looked. Bender. At that moment, Vermouth looked weaker than he had at any point in Eugenie's memories. He looked shrunken and worn down. If the Vermouth that Eugene had met in the darkroom had seemed tired and haggard, the current Vermouth looked depressed and broken. He could at least try to say something, Eugene thought as he glared at Vermouth. The emotions welling up within Eugene were growing ever more intense. But despite that, Eugene didn't try to say anything to Vermouth. In the end, this was all just Noir's dream, so no matter what Eugene said or did, Vermouth wouldn't be able to show any kind of reaction. After all of this had already happened in the past. Amid his swirling emotions, Eugene couldn't help but feel annoyed by that fact. Eugene ground his teeth as the dream Noir just stared at Vermouth without saying a word to him. Likewise, Vermouth also didn't say anything to Noir. After hesitating in silence for a few more seconds, Noir took a step forward. Fwoosh. But the moment Noir stepped forward, everything suddenly receded into the distance. Both the door that had opened up like a gap in space and Vermouth, who was sitting wrapped in chains beyond the doorway, then the temple, Amelia Merwin's mansion, and even the underground city of Revesta. This is as far as it goes, Noir informed him cheerfully. The dream scattered into pieces. Eugene stood there in silence for a few moments before turning to look back at Noir for an explanation. After all, the dream that Noir had intended to show him may have ended, but it wasn't as if the world had ended alongside the dream's end. Noir gave Eugene a bright smile before continuing to speak. I don't think there is any need to show you what happened after that. After that, I was kicked out of Revesta, dropped into the sea and had to struggle to stay afloat. Or do you perhaps want to see what I look like when wet? Before the lingering vestiges of what Eugene had just seen could even fade away, Noir had already started talking nonsense. Normally, he would have just ignored Noir's bullshit, or perhaps he would have tried to kick her ass, but the current Eugene wasn't capable of doing so. He stood there, frozen in the same spot as he tried to make sense of what he had just seen. Fuck, Eugene eventually cursed. There was no way that this was good news. But even so, his doubts weren't as strong as the last time he had received such a disturbing revelation. This was because Eugene felt that he had managed to confirm most of his deepest suspicions, so there wasn't any need for him to feel doubt. So, Vermouth Lionheart was currently in Revesta. Bound in the chains of incarceration, trapped in a chair, sitting inside a temple dedicated to the Demon King of Destruction. Given the circumstances, it seemed like the Demon King of Destruction might be lying in wait behind Vermouth. But what did all of this mean? The Demon King of Destruction has been silent for the past 300 years. Does that mean Vermouth is currently sealing away the Demon King of Destruction? Eugene wondered. Eugene had considered such a possibility in the past. This was because, between the Moonlight Sword and the Lionheart clan's blood, Vermouth seemed to have far too many connections to the Demon King of Destruction. There are a few things that I want to ask you, Eugene said as he turned to look at Noir after calming his emotions. The things that you showed me just now. Were those? It was all real, Noir confirmed without waiting for him to finish speaking. I can understand why you would feel such doubts, Hamel. For someone like you who hates demon folk and wants to kill all of us, you must not want to trust the words of a demon folk like me. However, Hamel, what benefit would I obtain from showing you a lie like this? You could just want to fuck with me, Eugene accused suspiciously. Or perhaps you just want me killed without having to get your own hands dirty. Hamel, are you seriously saying that? Do you really think I would consider something like that a benefit? Noir asked with a dangerous smile. Although she might have let out a hearty laugh, Noir hadn't really been expressing amusement. Instead, she was glaring at Hamel with a rarely seen look of anger on her face. After being subjected to this gaze for a few moments, Eugene quietly shook his head. I guess it wouldn't seem like a benefit to you, someone without any common sense, Eugene conceded. That's right, Noir happily agreed. Hamel, I'm the only one with the right to mess with you and give you a headache. Even without playing a trick like this, I can still mess with you as much as I want. As for killing you without getting my own hands dirty? Oh my god, Hamel, there's no way that I would do something like that. If you ever do die, I'm the one who has to take your life, and the same goes in reverse. And it has to be by my own hands that you lose your life so that your death can take place within my embrace. If you do end up telling me that you made all this up as a lie, if you're tricking me into accepting your story as real during such a critical moment, only to later reveal that it's actually false, I really will be furious with you, Eugene gravely warned her. For you to have such suspicions, you really do know me quite well. However, Hamel, what reason could there be for me to go this far? If it's to instill a murderous desire into someone who doesn't actually resent or hate me, then yes, I might use such a method. However, don't you already resent me, hate me, and want me dead? Why would I have to fan the flames even higher when you're already so heated up? Noir said with a giggle as she cutely poked her own cheeks. And I have to say, if I really did want to instill even more resentment, hatred, murderous intent, and rage into you, there's no need for me to show you this sort of dream. Honestly speaking, faking something like this would be cumbersome, complicated, and far too difficult for what it is worth. Because if I wanted to manipulate your emotions in a certain direction without being detected, I would have to create an extremely subtle dream to do so. Dimples appeared on Noir's cheeks as she began floating up into the air with an evil smirk. However, what would you do if I were to storm over to the Lionhearts right now and murder your siblings? If I were to kill all of your family as well? Or perhaps if I got rid of Sienna Meridian and Christina Rogerus? If I broke that little familiar you so cherish into pieces? Or if I kill the dragon princess Rhaenyra, who you're raising like a pet? The world around them seemed to be shaking. They were both currently located within the realm of Eugenie's consciousness. Now that the dream Noir had wished to show him had ended, everything in this realm could be seriously influenced by Eugenie's heightened emotions. Noir blinked in surprise and looked down at her body before bursting into laughter. At some point before she had even realized it, Noir's body had been torn into shreds. The emotions currently running through Eugene were responsible for having torn Noir apart. Noir giggled as she reconstructed her body. Ahem, I was only giving an example of how far I could possibly go, Noir reassured him. It may have been an unpleasant example to listen to, but in any case, you should see that there's no need for me to go through all that trouble just to trick you. In that case, what exactly do you gain from doing this? Eugene questioned suspiciously. Well now, I didn't necessarily do this because I felt that I had to gain some benefit from doing so. But if I were forced to find a reason, Noir thought about it for a few moments before her eyes curved up in a smile. Hamel, I just felt the urge to show it to you. Eugene was silent. I just wanted to show you what I saw, Noir repeated. Because I thought that was something that you desperately needed to know. Or perhaps, part of me could also have thought that if I showed you this, the perception you have of me might change a little. What exactly was she trying to say? Eugenie's brow furrowed in a scowl as he glared up at Noir. There's no way that you're trying to say something like what happened between you and me is just a misunderstanding, that the grudge between us is something from 300 years ago and that you're different now, right? Eugene eyed her suspiciously. Noir coughed to him. Eugene continued to voice his speculations. You don't want me to hate you, which is why you've helped me out so many times. And now you want me to accept you and perhaps even join hands to fight against the demon king of incarceration to Geth. Noir erupted in laughter, unable to hold it in any longer. Oh my God, Hamel, it's nothing like that. Let me just say this clearly. I really do want you to hate me so much that you dream of killing me. As for a misunderstanding, what is there to misunderstand between us? The grudge being from 300 years ago? If needed, I'm willing to build up even more grudges, you know? Also accepting me? Joining hands? Those do sound pretty tempting, and I think we can even consider accepting each other and joining hands in bed. As she watched Eugenie's expression darken, Noir continued speaking. Hamel, what I want from you is something quite romantic and sentimental. Someday when we finally attempt to kill each other, I or whoever ends up winning, I hope they feel a slight hesitation at the final moment. Hesitation? Eugene repeated in disbelief after a pause. Yes, Noir nodded. As they think about all the memories we share between us, I hope the winner hesitates before taking their foe's last breath. And if that variable ends up changing the outcome between victory and defeat, I feel like that would be quite entertaining as well. Noir created a comfortable chair out of nowhere, took a seat, slowly crossed her legs and settled in a seductive pose. To put it simply, the reason I am doing these things for you is to build up those memories between us. Because most of the memories that we share are from 300 years ago. However, many things have already happened between us since then, haven't they? Noir said with a smile. For example, in the snowfields on their way to the night march, in the hotel as Eugene prepared to infiltrate the dragon demon castle, and the latest being on the deck of a ship in the Salgalta Sea. And then right at this very moment. From now on as well, I will try to get closer to you whenever I have the chance. That way, even more memories will be built up between us, and Hamel, perhaps some attachment might just grow within you as well. However, we definitely will attempt to kill each other someday, but after we decide who lives and dies. Noir paused and placed a hand on her chest as she imagined their shared future. Then perhaps I will feel a great sense of loss. I will regret killing you, I will grieve, I will mourn, and perhaps I might even end up hating myself for doing so. Hamel, because of you, I may end up feeling all sorts of first. Such thoughts definitely couldn't be understood by anyone with a normal point of view. Eugene stared at Noir with eyes devoid of understanding and shook his head before saying, I won't hesitate when the time comes to kill you, and after killing you, I won't feel any emotions other than joy and relief. Noir smirked, hee, but that doesn't matter to me. After all, I would already be dead. Also, Hamel, in my opinion, the probability of me killing you is overwhelmingly higher than the probability of you killing me. Eugene also thought Noir's words were correct, at least for now. When he thought about it that way, he could understand Noir's words and actions just a little. In Noir's case, she believed that she would definitely kill Eugene someday. As such, she felt free to build up as many memories and shared feelings with Eugene as she pleased. Also that one day, whenever she finally decided to go ahead and kill Eugene, she would get to feel all of the emotions that she had built up for him crumble away. But why are you so obsessed with me? Eugene asked in confusion. That was what Eugene couldn't understand. If I had to say why, Hamel, it's because of how much you want to kill me, Noir answered him. Eugene pointed out there should be a lot of people other than me who want to kill you. Even setting aside all of the humans, there should be quite a few demon folk as well. However, no one among them has feelings as strong as yours. There's no one as special as you are, and there's also no one as capable as you are, Noir praised Eugene. Eugene took a few moments to think, if you really want to die that much, why don't you just revolt against the demon king of incarceration? Or you could throw yourself against the demon king of destruction. It seems that you really don't understand what my heart desires. I'm saying that I want to be killed by someone with a particular, obsessive and intense hatred for me. The demon kings, they might be able to kill me whenever they please, but I'm not anything special to them. And in return, I don't think of them as being a special existence to myself either, Noir said with a grin as she shook her head. Hamel, I love you more than you actually realize. It doesn't matter even if you dislike me and try to push me away. Just one last question, Eugene said after sighing with a disgusted expression. Are those insane notions of yours really important enough for you to betray the Demon King of Incarceration? Aren't you supposed to be on the Demon King of Incarceration's side? Oh my god. Noir yelped as she stared at Eugene with a sincerely astonished expression. Hamel, what on earth do you mean by that? You're accusing me of betrayal? But I was never on the Demon King of Incarceration's side in the first place. Eugene was perplexed. What? Of course, the Demon King of Incarceration is the Emperor of Helmuth and I am one of the dukes. But even so, that doesn't actually mean I have sworn obedience to the Demon King of Incarceration. So it's not a betrayal for me to tell you about my visit to Revesta or what I saw there, Noir claimed. Eugene frowned. What kind of bullshit is? Noir spoke over him. To put it simply, I am not a vassal of the Demon King of Incarceration. Everything I have was achieved solely through my own efforts, and I am the only one with authority over myself. As she finished saying that, Noir abruptly leaped up from her chair, having had a sudden thought. No way. Noir gasped. There's no way, Hamel. Are you actually showing worry for me? You think that, for your sake, I betrayed the Demon King of Incarceration? So you were worried that I might be severely punished because of that, weren't you? Eugene scowled. I just thought that it wouldn't be good if the Demon King of Incarceration gets to kill you instead of me. Liar. Noir accused. You were worried about me. That's right, I have betrayed the Demon King of Incarceration. All for your sake, Hamel. For the sake of our love. When exactly do I get to wake up from this damn dream? Eugene spat out as his face twisted into a disgusted grimace.